Sometimes you want to provide your learners with a continue or transitional message after they've completed an interactive slide. Let's explore how you can do so. To show you an example of what I mean, you can see that I've got a slide here with 3 separate buttons, and I want a message to show up in the lower right-hand corner, telling the learner that they're done with the interaction, regardless of the order that they click these buttons in. So you'll notice I can click the first button, I see new information. I can even skip that one and jump down to the third button, see more information. And then when I click the final button, again, in any order, now I see that message in the lower right-hand corner that says I can select the next button to continue. So let's take a look at how we would pull this off in Storyline. I'll start by demonstrating how to use states to accomplish this. I've got a slide here and I've already got the buttons built. I've already got my layers built as well, and I even have the triggers to show those layers. What I want to do first is actually start by building out that continue layer. And this can look however you want. You could even have audio narration on this. But I just have a message that's going to show up here in the bottom right that says select next to continue. Now, I want this layer to show up in addition to those other 3 layers. I don't want this layer to replace the other 3 layers. So what you'll want to do is for that continue layer, go into your slide layer properties and uncheck this first option here that says hide other slide layers. Again, that way it's not going to replace or be seen instead of those other layers, but it's going to be shown in addition to those other layers. And then I'll close this out. Now that we've got the continue layer set up the way that we want, we need to add a trigger to the other layers. So I'll start by going to this layer 1, and I'm going to add a trigger that says show that continue layer when the timeline starts on this layer, but only do that if these 3 buttons have been clicked. And we know those 3 buttons have been clicked if they're in the visited state. So we could say if button 1 is equal to visited, and I'll duplicate this twice and say and if button 2 is visited, and if button 3 is visited. So we're going to show that continue layer after all 3 buttons are visited, meaning they've already clicked on all 3 buttons, and I'll click OK. We need this same trigger on the other 2 layers, but it's easy just to copy it and then just to go to the other 2 layers and then paste it on there, and now this slide will work the way that we wanted it to. I did want to show you one other option. Instead of using visited states, you might have situations where the objects that your learner is clicking on don't actually have visited states. I've got this other slide here, and what we're going to do is use variables instead. So if you've got something where you want to keep track of this, have they clicked on all 3 objects, you can go into the variables window. Let me drag this over. And you'll see that I've created 3 separate true-false variables for each of these 3 layers. Now, on the layers, you would do a very similar treatment. You would just need to have 2 separate triggers. The first trigger will set that variable to true, and then the second one would then show that layer. And you'll notice if I go to the other layers, they're the same exact thing. It's just that the first trigger is changing the other variables instead. So hopefully that's now something you can add to your own Storyline courses the next time you want to have continue or transitional messages on interactive slides.